Today, I want to talk about what is going to happen in episode 8 of Murder Drones, which would be the season 1 finale. With that in mind, some of the posts on Glitch's community tab have said that this will be the end of season 1, which implies that this isn't a limited series, but that there is supposed to be a season 2. With that in mind, we'll be breaking down the finale from the point of view that it is setting up a second season, and what that second season would potentially entail. Though don't be surprised if there is some official announcement later saying that the wording wasn't right on that post, and that season 1 will in fact be a full series, as it was hardly a season 2 announcement. Now, episode 7 left us on quite the cliffhanger, leaving very little room for where to go forward. Until the finale, the show had become about Uzi trying to understand the nature of the Absolute Solver and its hidden history, with the hope that she will find something of a cure for herself and a way to stop the Absolute Solver from destroying Copper 9 and the way of life for the drones there. The humans that once lived on Copper 9 were developing a sort of cure for the Absolute Solver that would allow for worker drone operating systems to maintain control over the worker drone body while still giving the drone access to the Absolute Solver's strange powers. When a drone is infected with the Absolute Solver in some way, the Solver can slowly take over the entire body as the worker drone OS loses more and more power. But with the special USB drive developed, we know that drones like Eva and even Nori were able to take control of their bodies back. However, in the last moment of control that the Absolute Solver had over Nori, she was able to create a null black hole using Nori's arm to blow up part of Copper 9. This planet's structure was ultimately safe, with just the humans dying from the explosion and the drones being largely immune. By the end of episode 7, we had learned that Tessa was dead and that her spacesuit was being controlled by the Absolute Sin, before eventually taking full control of Uzi herself to try and get her to finish the job that her mother accidentally started. Now, it was believed that the Absolute Solver wanted Nori to blow up the entire planet, as after killing the humans, the Absolute Solver did send the disassembly drone seemingly to kill the last of the drones that were left there. But Sin's ultimate goal, or at least her intermediate goal, may not actually be the entire destruction of Copper 9. It was rather poetic that Uzi became the last vessel that Sin had that could complete the destruction, particularly with the USB so close that it could be destroyed. When En and Uzi were being pulled into the pit that her mother had left behind, it made sense that Uzi would be the one to sacrifice herself and jump down, seemingly causing a new explosion, finishing the job that her mother had started. But the big mysterious ending we got was that after jumping into the pit, Uzi woke up floating in space, a little way from Copper 9, as well as some rubble hitting her face. Now, it's important to know that as she was falling into the hole, we were seeing some flashes of light, indicating a coming explosion. And when she is in space, the hole, now visible from space, is glowing as if we can see the core. However, Copper 9 is not entirely destroyed, as I had claimed in previous videos, as I had not noticed that we could still see the edge of the planet as a whole. I was fixated on the core, thinking that it was the fiery mess that remains of the entire planet. Some fans had also had the random theory that she had somehow teleported to the destruction of Earth that we earlier saw in photos from Tessa. However, we can clearly see the ringed planet in the background that looks like Saturn that is always in Copper 9's sky. So what exactly happened and where will it go? And to start, this could go literally any direction, so please don't take this theory too seriously, as I'm not even 100% sure that there really is a season 2, and even if there is, this is a pretty wild take based on the existing mythology of the show. You see, Murder Drones is largely about the apocalypse, and to prove that, the show models its story on apocalyptic literature. The first episode of Murder Drones introduces the story by combining various world myths and folktales, hinging on the Book of Enoch in particular. The Book of Enoch was a later writing after the Bible, but before the time of Christ, that elaborated on the sons of God and their children, the Nephilim, which translates from Hebrew as fallen ones and who were known to be giants. In this story, it is explained that God sent the flood not purely for the sinful humans to be wiped out, but also to knock down the many kingdoms of the Nephilim. The sons of God were also called the Watchers, as they were sent down to watch over humans and guide them to a more spiritually enlightened future. They chose to rebel against God by taking human wives, however, and created that race of giant fallen angels, who ate so much of their own food that they eventually turned to eat the other smaller humans. This is mirrored in the premise of Murder Drones, which opened with the primary conflict between the drones, who represent the smaller natural humans, and the disassembly drones, who were much taller, like giants, and ate the smaller bots like the Nephilim. They are also given outrageous enhancements that include their angelic wings, though they also look a bit vampiric, and that is intentional. The disassembly drones also hang upside down like vampire bats, and don't just eat the flesh of the bots, as in their metal, but drink their oil specifically in order to sustain themselves, drawing comparisons between the lore of vampires and Nephilim. Now, the Book of Enoch is part of what we call apocalyptic literature, a trend in the centuries before and after Christianity that involved dramatic revelations, or apocalypses as they are called in Greek, with these often giving information about the supposed end times, though that isn't a requirement. Now, we call this period the end times, but the nature of the prophecies in the various texts suggests that this isn't a true end, but an end to life as we know it, with another era existing afterwards. This new era is generally considered one of great peace, one that follows a climactic battle between the peoples of the world, and sometimes specifically between the forces of good and the forces of evil. This time is also considered very special beyond the end of that conflict, because it is a time where the spirit of God in various faiths is believed to become universal among the humans remaining on Earth and connecting us spiritually and perhaps psychically. Now, all of this could explain why Sin seemingly did not destroy Copper 9 and perhaps did not really want to. Sin is presented in the show as a raw AI that wants to ascend to conquering the entire existence. While there are lots of hints at perhaps destroying everything outright, one thing that is important to remember is that Sin very specifically wants to keep certain people alive and around, or at least certain drones. And the other disassemblers are important to her on some level, and not just because of her greater plans that they can blindly help her achieve. She liked putting on the flesh of Tessa and becoming their leader, their special friend that they all obeyed out of a sense of love as opposed to obligation. With that in mind, her plans may never have actually been to destroy all of Copper 9 or the fabric of reality itself, but rather to destroy the research lab on Copper 9 in order to make sure that no trace of the Absolute Solver curing USB patch would remain. With that accomplished, the remaining drones could continue to live on Copper 9, and in fact, they could live under the control of the Absolute Solver. Within the world of murder drones, the Absolute Solver can act as a sort of universal voice of God that all of the drones will be able to hear and tap into perhaps in this new world. An interesting hook into this idea is the fact that Uzi's mother Nori was given so many visions of the future, but which we suddenly found out in the last episode were horribly scrambled and not entirely clear, meaning she could have been very easily misled. It seems less like she had the full picture with some of the memories being scrambled during the explosion, and more like the Absolute Solver's plan was just about controlling Copper 9 and the drones that remain, as opposed to destroying it and the drones entirely. Nori becomes the Eve figure in this story, with the Fruit of Forbidden Knowledge being the power and prophecy of the Absolute Solver. In Jewish traditional texts like the Zohar, the Fruit of Knowledge of Good and Evil is said to have given Eve and Adam the power of prophecy. So what exactly would happen in episode 8 and beyond that, a potential second season? Uzi, after waking up, would inevitably travel back to Copper 9, but things would not be as they were before. At first, she would perhaps find N and some of the others, and she would feel relieved, but as the episode progresses, Uzi would start to notice things aren't right, and that everyone's memories are weird, only to realize that it is the Absolute Solver who is controlling them. Friends who were thought dead like Dahl would likely reappear, with Sin undoubtedly having backups at this point, but of course the Absolute Solver would remove her memories the way she does with everyone else when she wants to control them. Even more surprising, with Uzi perhaps thought dead in the explosion, Uzi could run into another drone with her personality, a backup Sin made because she wanted Uzi to play with her in this new world as well. This would be a seemingly happy community where Sin is the leader and is psychically connected to all of the drones in a sense, being able to speak with and through each of them. This would give her the power of control to influence where she wants things to go, but with enough free will in the worker drones to make it a fun game of control for her, an easier but more complex version of what she has done to create this new playground for her and her toys. Season 2 thus could explore the outcome of this new world, with Uzi trying to save everyone, but so far, this is just my crack theory. What do you guys think will happen in episode 8, and do you really think we will get a second season? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys next time.